Hello, you're listening to Shoot the Hostage. My name's Sarah, and together with my partner Dan, we are a movie podcast where we talk about 8 different films per season based around a specific theme. Now, if you're hearing my voice, that means it's my choice of theme this season. But before we get stuck in, I do want to mention we get quite spoilery, so please bear that in mind. We don't want to ruin the film for you, so if you haven't seen it, maybe go away and then come back. If you like what you hear and you would like to help us out, there are a number of ways you can do that. The absolute easiest one is to just recommend us to a friend. If you want to go the extra mile, a 5-star review on Spotify would be hugely appreciated. A review on your podcast player of choice would also be hugely helpful. And if you really, really want to help us, we've got a Patreon, which is £3 a month, and you get access to a ton of extra content in the form of reviews of new cinema releases, new streaming releases. You get to see the lineup of the season ahead of time, and we do a wrap show at the end of every season. But all of that aside, I just want to say thank you for listening, and let's get stuck in.
Okay, we are still in your season.
Yeah.
This episode marks the halfway point, doesn't it?
It does.
When we reach the end of it, we're still trapped.
I thought you were going to say when we reach the end of it. I thought you meant the season. Yes, that'll be the end of it, Dan.
That'll be the end of the season.
Yeah.
But the end of this episode will mark the halfway point of the season.
Yes.
Look, we're getting trapped in these things that don't really matter.
Oh, I see what you did there.
It's just fucking awkward to get these things going, isn't it? Always. But we're doing it. And I don't have to comment on it either. That makes it even more awkward.
It does, yeah.
We
You definitely doubled down on that and made it worse.
Could have just cut it all out and no one would know. And then we just smoothly go, so John Carpenter, it's all on Precinct 13.
When have either of us ever been smooth?
Yeah, true. Good point. Well made. So we are firmly in the trapped season, as we've mentioned. We're taking another bite of the John Carpenter tree today. Yep. And what a treat this tree is, because we are discussing Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah. I've got a bone to pick with you.
With me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you should have opened with that.
So, you know how last season I tried to make you justify your choice of film each show?
Yeah.
And
I know what's coming.
Of all of the John Carpenter movies, you decided to go for Big Trouble in Little China, which we both agreed was not a neo-Western, when this was staring you in the face.
Yeah.
This is absolutely a neo-Western.
I was going to bring this up as well.
Okay, good.
It's funny you should mention that, because this is way more of a Western than Big Trouble in Little China. Had a similar traction, though, similar beginnings, because this one also started life as a Western, much like Big Trouble in Little China. But this is kind of the siege, it's the shootout, it's the bad people that are good. What's the word for that?
Anti-hero?
Anti-heroes, that's it.
Bad people what are also good.
Oh, come on. Give me a break. Yeah, this would have fitted way better.
Yeah.
And I thought that while we were watching the movie. I think I just really wanted to talk about Big Trouble in Little China. But on reflection, maybe should have saved that for another season. Could have fitted within a flop season that we've been talking about. We floated the idea of that at some point, so
it's too late.
I mean, we can do it again. Who says we can't do it again?
Maybe in 6 to 7 years when I've forgotten.
That's very precise.
Well, I'm getting older now. My memory's not as good. If it had been, I don't know, in my 30s, I might have said 15 to 20 years when I've forgotten.
I reckon
But time's ticking. It's against me.
I reckon less. I reckon in about 3 or 4 years, I can go, do you know what? We've never covered Big Trouble in Little China.
Do you think? As few as that? Okay.
Maybe. But yeah, this is way more of a Western.
Yeah.
Agreed. I can't argue with that.
Good.
But it's also trapped, because they're trapped.
Yeah, very literally.
What year is this one? 1976.
76.
Okay, so this is after Elvis.
Yeah, so Dark Star was Carpenter's first feature, and that was 74.
Okay.
So this was only 2 years after his first feature film. And he was just pumping them out then.
Yeah, I can't remember what year Elvis was. For some reason, I want to say 75.
It might have been, you know.
Because Dark Star feels like it was his kind of proof of, like, look, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then he probably got the reins to do a TV movie, which was Elvis. And then he got funding to make this movie via parents of his friends, what are also producers of the movie, yeah. He's apparently said, I think he said it in a commentary, it's a good job that he knows rich people, basically, because they basically got this movie made. It's like $100,000 budget, I read, $100,000 budget, but reports differ, and it's an old movie, so it's tricky and difficult to figure that out. After this, obviously, Halloween.
Just hit after hit after hit.
Yeah, and Halloween remains his biggest ever hit, doesn't it? Like, that movie absolutely crushed. I think we discussed in our Big Trouble episode about it's surprising just how many of his films are considered absolute classics and everyone has a favourite JC, but a lot of them didn't do very well at the box office. And I couldn't find any box office information for this one. It was pretty scarce, the numbers information on Google.
The only information I found, nothing to do with numbers, but I did read that it didn't do great in the US and it performed much better in the UK.
Oh, I heard that critically UK audiences, or I think I heard specifically one critic just went absolutely nuts for it and said, this is fucking great.
Oh, well, at least we were on the right side of history this one time.
This time, yeah. And that critic is absolutely correct, because this is a fucking banger.
It sure is.
The thing is about this movie, Sarah, is it fucking rules. And
I knew you liked this. So let's start from the beginning. I saw this, I think probably around 2005, because I'm ashamed to say it, I saw the remake first.
Oh yeah, we're going to touch on a remake.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't love it. I will say that right out of the gate, but it piqued my interest enough to seek this out. And obviously, I was already very familiar with Halloween at that point, and I don't think I appreciated it as much as I do now. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a good movie, but I get a lot more out of it now at this age. And it wasn't until probably 2 years ago when we did a Stuck in a Place themed movie weekend, and I suggested that. And was that the first time you'd seen it?
It was.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because John Carpenter is probably my favourite director, and I don't really know why I never saw this one. It's
got you written all over it.
Right? And when you picked it for the Stuck in a Place film festival and we sat down to watch it, it's literally frame one. And I was like, I'm going to fucking love this, aren't I? And
you're
like,
in.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I've only seen it twice now. This marks the second time that I've seen it. Enjoyed it just as much, if not more, the second time round. And I don't know if, like, part of me is glad that I never saw it when I was a kid, because it's a fresh Carpenter movie.
Yeah.
And Lord knows that's a beautiful, rare thing. So I get to enjoy it having only seen it twice, because if I had seen it when I was younger, I would have seen this 47 times by now. I'll be familiar with every single beat. So I'm kind of in two minds. Like, on the one stretch, I'm like, oh, I wish I'd seen it when I was a kid and I'd had all those years of enjoying it. But also, like, oh, it was nice to just save a JC for being a bit older, you know. And I think you asked me this yesterday, like, would I have enjoyed it as much when I was a kid? And I think I would. And I think a big part of that, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is the music. But I probably would have fast forwarded through some of the slower bits, you know, on 6th, 7th, 8th viewing.
Yeah.
And then just got to the action bits.
I find that interesting, because I think if I'd seen it when I was a kid, it probably would have bored me.
Mm.
And again, I'm ashamed to say that, but yeah, there wasn't enough going on. And don't get me wrong, it's a very pacey, sort of lean 90 minutes. But as a kid, I don't know if it would have done much for me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad.
I can see that. I mean, as an adult, I said, as soon as the film starts, it starts with like a black screen. You get red lettering over the black screen with the music, and it does that thing that old movies do, and it does the credits at the beginning, and it really sets you up. Like, I was thinking while we were watching it, I would fucking love to see this at the cinema.
Mm.
Did they show this on the John Carpenter marathon at
They
Prince
didn't,
Charles?
No.
Oh, good Lord. Well, if they do one and this is on that list, then
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Next time we go, I'm going to, you know, on the little chalkboard, I'm going to write Assault on Precinct 13.
Brackets 1976.
Yeah, oh God, yeah, brackets. Can you imagine if they put on a 2005 one? Which I don't hate. I think it's all right.
Well, yeah.
It's all right. It's not bad. Yeah, so relatively new watch for me. I keep eyeing up the Blu-ray. It's a second sight, I believe, but you've already got the second sight DVD.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh,
and there's some extras on it, so yeah. I'm not displeased with it.
There's a commentary and stuff, but I don't know. I feel like I've just finished a job, so I feel like I might treat myself to the Bluey of this.
There's another film we're going to double up on in this house.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many that we've doubled up on. But I feel like when it comes to John Carpenter, you just can't have enough copies of his movies.
I mean, you can have too many copies of Ghosts of Mars, in my humble opinion.
We've only got one copy of that in this house.
And that's one too many.
Yeah. Vampires, again. Do you prefer vampires or Ghosts of Mars?
Ooh, probably vampires.
Yeah?
Yeah. Unhinged, James Woods, and vampires. Vampires are my jam.
Yeah. Terry Silver from Karate Kid 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of homophobic language in that movie.
Oh God, don't! I haven't seen it in years. Is it going to be one of those things that I instantly regret putting on? I wish I just kept in my hazy memory.
When's the last time you saw vampires?
More than 10 years ago.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah,
no.
That movie does not... Even at the time when I was watching it in 98 or whenever it came out, I fucking loved it. But was like, is this okay? And that was coming from a 14-year-old boy.
Oh, dear. Okay.
So I was like, it's James Woods. He doesn't seem like a very nice man.
No.
I don't know if I'm really rooting for him, but the music's great. And I want to watch Vampires on Fire. So, yeah, there's some problematic stuff in it, mostly from James Woods. But I really like that movie still. If you leave that stuff aside, I think it's a lot of fun. And I've got a lot of time for Ghosts of Mars. I know I can acknowledge it's not a very good movie.
It's fun garbage.
And I feel like maybe out of all of John Carpenter's movies, maybe I would say Ghosts of Mars is more like Assault on Precinct 13 than anything, because of the kind of... Stick with me. So the more like... there's no Jason Statham in Assault on Precinct 13, or Clea Duvall, sadly for you.
Yeah.
But you've got like the horde element where there's just waves of evil people waiting to kill you. Now in Ghosts of Mars, they are ghosts what live on Mars. I think. I don't really. Maybe they're zombies. I don't know. Doesn't matter. And in obviously Assault on Precinct 13, they are human beings.
It's interesting you say that though, because John Carpenter's gone on record to say that he was inspired by Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, that's right up your road, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like a zombie kind of vibe.
Yeah, just how, obviously we'll get to it later on in the show, but just how relentless and ongoing the horde of gang members was.
Yeah, I've heard this a lot. People, the podcast that I listen to a bunch is the Blank Check podcast. It's fucking great. If you haven't listened, it's a great podcast. And I've listened to their Assault on Precinct 13 episode more than once, possibly 3 times. And they bring up in that, it feels like a video game. It feels like...
we were literally, as we were watching it last night, I even commented this would make a really good video game.
Yeah. Or like the baddies feel like supernatural beings, like whether that's vampires or zombies, pick your poison. And it's interesting that was very much his intention.
Yeah.
JC's intention, like... God, he makes a fucking good movie, doesn't he?
He sure does.
This is not... Listen, if you're coming here for a balanced review of a John Carpenter movie, you are in the wrong fucking place.
No, it's 100% sycophantic. Actually, no, it's not, because there's some balance. We're massive John Carpenter fans, but you've already called out vampires for being problematic, and we've already called Ghosts of Mars garbage, so there's some balance.
I suppose so.
And the ward was dog shit, so... I
don't think either of those are, like... unpopular opinions.
No, they're not. They're not controversial, for sure.
No.
Just going back briefly to vampires. So John Carpenter always struck me as somebody who's like quite inclusive, but you've mentioned the homophobic language in vampires.
Yeah.
And it's got me thinking, like, are there any LGBTQIA plus characters in any of his films? Because I couldn't think of any off the top of my head.
I can't think of any that are outright gay characters, but I think, if I remember correctly, in Prince of Darkness, I want to say that the Dennis Dunn character was possibly coded as a homosexual.
Okay.
Because I seem to remember something about a closet and him hiding in the closet or something.
Right,
I might be
okay.
imagining this, but I seem to remember the last time we watched it, there was something about it, and I remember thinking, "Oh, that's interesting." But I think
Okay.
I don't think there are any outright LGBTQ plus IA. Did I get it right?
It's you don't have to get it. Look, you're an ally. You know you're an ally. you can fumble that. But is John Carpenter an ally? That's my question. Like, I mean, not that you don't have to go out of your way to be as inclusive as possible, because that can often result in tokenism and can detract from the story that you're trying to tell. But it's odd, and just your mention of the homophobic language in Vampires has got me. My brain's sort of overworking now.
Well, I'd have to look up who wrote Vampires. Probably JC, let's be honest. It's James Woods. Okay, so let's float the idea that possibly he's improvising some dialogue.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's a bit of a bellend, James Woods, but let's not go down that road.
Allegedly.
He plays a bellend very well, let's just say that.
He does.
I don't know. I've never seen the man speak on the matter, but
no.
I would like to think that someone that is kind of as creative and creatively open-minded and kind of...
Well, this is why I ask, because obviously he is of a generation that is typically less open-minded, but the lengths to which he's gone to sort of cast minorities and just non-white actors in so many of his films, in prominent roles as well, it would surprise me if he wasn't more open-minded.
Yeah, possibly.
I would like to believe he's one of the cool ones.
Well, let's hope so.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, let's hope so. I tell you what, I think he has got some, for the time period, and in this movie in particular, he's got some interesting female characters.
He does, yeah. And I love the fact that the main character in this is black.
Yep.
Is it Austin Stoker? But he's always sort of coming up with interesting roles. I mean, obviously we talked at length about Big Trouble in Little China. There's like, 2, 3 non-Asian actors in the whole movie.
Yep, one of them's a moron.
Yeah. Obviously he's cast people like Keith David in really prominent roles. I believe that was The Thing was his first big role, or first role. Pam Grier, Ghost of Mars.
Yeah.
But like he's consistently got really good representation in his films.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. And particularly, like you say, in this one, main character Austin Stoker,
which also sort of has echoes of Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, and then you've got obviously Darwin Justin as Napoleon and Tony Burton as Wells. So you've got a black character who's a criminal and a white character that's a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. And then Laurie Zimmer, who's a really strong female character in this movie. And I think I noticed it more this time round than I did last time.
It's funny, isn't it? Because apparently she hated her performance in this, which is kind of wild to me, because one of the things I love about her character is just how aloof and unflappable she is.
Yeah, I can, if someone watched this, I kind of would understand that seems a bit flat, but I get nuance from that. I get that she's probably had to put up a lot of shit. She's got a lot of barriers up. Nothing, like you say,
in a police station.
She works in a police station she's worked there for 5 years, which is enough time to put her hairs on rocks. And
as they say.
Yeah. And I get the feeling that she's just kind of seen it all, and she's got her defenses up, and she knows how to handle things. And I think she's a really good character.
Yeah, me too. I was surprised to read that. I would say, is it Nancy Keys as Julie?
I didn't write that one down.
She's the slightly less nuanced female character.
Yeah.
But the one who sort of dies about the halfway point.
Okay.
She's the more panicked one. She crops up in a few Carpenter projects. She was definitely in Halloween, and she was definitely in The Fog. I think she was in Halloween 2 and 3 as well. Obviously, there's another connection to Halloween 3. Tommy Lee Wallace was art director on this movie and directed Halloween 3.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see all the threads between his earlier work.
I think like he just keeps employing the same people over and over again, which we've spoken about many times, but that seems like it's a good indication. You know, if you don't get on with someone, you don't work with them again.
Yeah, or if they're just a nightmare to work for, you would avoid them, surely.
Yeah, precisely.
It tends to be a pretty good gauge, I think.
Yeah. And DOP on this was Douglas Knapp, who was a DOP on Dark Star.
Okay.
And then I think this obviously is 1976. The year after is when JC begins his almost 10-year collaboration with Dean Cundy, the DOP that we spoke about on Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
One of the most prolific DPs in history, which I had no idea he had so many incredible credits.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like I said, I in that show, I knew the name, but I was shocked.
Yeah, it's just like blockbuster after blockbuster and like all of your favourite movies apart from Apollo 13.
So, with that in mind, what do you think of the cinematography in this film? Obviously, like, budgetary constraints aside, it's a little bit rough around the edges, but what do you think about how it looks?
I think it looks great. I think there's some really interesting work at like sundown or sun up. I'm not sure which one it is, but there's like limited sun and some darkness going on. And I think there's some interesting camera work that's utilised. I think there's a nice shot. There's some nice exterior shots of the precinct as well. I think it looks really, when you consider how much it was made for as well, I think it looks really good.
Yeah. I'd love to know if there's a better transfer out there, because when I say it looks a little bit rough around the edges, I think maybe the transfer has a little bit to answer for there.
Yeah,
a little bit grainy. But I mean, maybe that was just the time period and the budget.
Yeah, possibly.
But as you've said, like the framing, the lighting, they definitely did a lot with a little.
I didn't notice the grainy image. I must be honest. Like the thing that always comes to mind whenever I think about transfers is, well, 1, 28 days later, and 2, Training Day. Like I've got a DVD of Training Day, and the transfer that is just dog shit.
Oh,
it's horrible, and that's a newer movie.
Yeah. Well, maybe I've got cataracts. Who knows?
Or maybe I was just so like into this movie that I just didn't care.
So the setup of the film, we're thrown in pretty quickly, right? There's only that one sort of establishing scene of gang members being shot by police.
Yep.
And then I think it's reported on either the radio or the TV. And then the next thing we see is the 4 quite disparate looking gang members, all sort of different ethnicities. And they're doing some weird like bloodletting thing, which looked super real. That gave me the ick. No?
It didn't give me the ick.
Okay.
No, it didn't give me the ick. But I really liked how it opened with the policemen up on the upper levels, and you don't see their faces, you just see them gunning down gang members, which I thought was a really nice opening. Like you say, gets you straight into it. Like, this is the setup that we're not wasting any time. They're going to gun down some gang members, and the gang members are going to get revenge. And then, like you say, they do this weird bloodletting thing,
which we find out later on is some sort of ritual. They daub something on a big kind of sheet and leave that, and the blood that they toss in the front of the police station to sort of, and they say that they're marked.
Right.
I don't know what that means in literal terms, but apparently it's something to do with sort of seeking revenge on your enemies, even at a cost to yourself.
Yeah.
Which is precisely what happens to most of them. 59 deaths, by the way, in this movie. Yeah.
59 deaths. It kind of feels like more, doesn't it?
It does, because it's so relentless. Yeah. But there are many more injuries, but 59 fatalities.
Someone gets a paper cut. Napoleon gets a splinter when he catches that shotgun and does fucking...
burns himself on a match.
Yeah.
Trying to get his coveted cigarette.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are sort of thrust straight in.
Yeah, you get the setup, and then it's just really like economical with the information it's giving you. I guess there's not really much of a budget. It kind of has to be, but I really like that. Like, discuss it all the time. Movies are way too long now. I wish that we would get more movies like this. Just the attention to detail, the love and the craft that's gone into it, but also the runtime.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, I don't know what it is, like over the last 10, 15, 20 years, for some reason, every single movie has to be over 2 hours. I don't get it.
Self-indulgence?
I guess, but it doesn't even make any sense, like
No.
from showing the film at a cinema, because if you want to get as many screens as possible, let's make it an hour and a half. No, it's 25% more showings that we can have on the screens. I don't get it.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. You don't need to convince me. I agree.
You just got to be a bit more refined, a bit more economical. We don't need these. You can get enough information, like in this movie, about the characters from subtle dialogue.
Yeah.
And enough, like, I didn't know exactly what happened with Napoleon, which we'll get to in a minute.
Okay.
But I get enough and then maybe even the mystery adds to it a little bit. Like, oh, I wonder, like, if he did this, or like, why was he there, and is he a good man? Is he a bad man? Like, it leaves a little bit open to interpretation. There's enough mystery in there, which is interesting, and I just think I think things are maybe over-explained a little bit.
I agree. I definitely think Carpenter is somebody who respects his audience.
Yeah,
always has. Maybe less so now, because he's such a cranky old man.
He doesn't respect anyone.
No, but he certainly did in his heyday, and I think that's super obvious here. Do any of the gang members even have any dialogue? Do they have any lines?
I'm sure that they don't know you have some dialogue during the bloodletting scene.
Maybe, but I think that might be it.
Maybe it's just like we've all got to shank our arms now. Yeah, there's not. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
No, and after that, it's just sort of all communication via knowing looks and nods and stuff, which is more terrifying as well.
Yeah.
And also lends more to the kind of, as you already said, like supernatural feel of them, like being an unstoppable force.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, like, it depends on the type of movie you're making. Like, if you've got a baddie in a movie and it's like one baddie versus another baddie versus a goodie or whatever, then you maybe want to get some more information about everybody, and maybe you can relate to both parties, and that kind of makes it interesting. But in this movie, you don't really need that. You just need a motive, and you need some good craft in terms of how the movie's made. Yeah, I don't think you need any of that. I guess if they remake this today, then we're going to have half an hour of spending time with the gang members and getting to know, oh, Terry lives with his nan, and he takes her shopping out for her and to the bin once she's eaten her food. And then his brother, like Brian, he's in prison, and like you get this whole backstory. It's just fucking unnecessary in this movie.
I don't know. I was enjoying where that was going to go.
I didn't know where it was going.
I was on the edge of my seat.
But yeah, just taking it back to Napoleon again, like you get enough in the dialogue. I fucking love his character.
He's so cool.
Like I think a few times when we were watching it last night, I was just sort of looked at you, like, oh, love him. But like, is he a good guy? What has he done?
But I don't think it matters within the context of this film.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you just want the people that are being attacked to survive and get out. Regardless of what they've done in the past, you don't want anyone to die. But I just was curious about it. I was just like, what has he done? Why is he in prison? Like, what crimes has he committed? He says at one point in the movie that he was born out of time. That's an interesting piece of dialogue. Like, is he like a reincarnation of the actual Napoleon?
Did he quantum leap there? Is that what you meant?
Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I like the mystery of his character.
Are you at all intrigued by the gang themselves? Because something that always strikes me is that, like they say on the radio broadcasts, they make a point of saying this interracial gang, which, from my very limited understanding as a very sheltered white woman in the UK, is unusual. Like, gangs tend to be sort of a bit more segregated, shall we say. And it just sort of tickles me that the one thing that's united all of these gang members is how much they hate cops.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that stopped them all squabbling.
Yeah.
That made me chuckle. But yeah, I did wonder as well, like maybe they decided on that so as not to confuse people or to kind of invite controversy, so they didn't resemble any real life gangs.
Yeah, maybe.
Because, I mean, you obviously want to distinguish fiction from real life when you're dealing with dangerous people. So that wouldn't surprise me. And yeah, it's set in LA, isn't it? Anderson, LA?
Yes. Is that a real place?
I'm not sure. I know the address of the new precinct is something Ellendale Road, I believe, which was John Carpenter's old address when he first moved to LA.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So he's doxed himself. Or the new occupants, rather.
I think the original title for it was the Anderson Alamo, I think I want to say.
Yeah, I think originally Carpenter wanted to go with the Siege.
Okay.
And then they talked about the Anderson Alamo, which obviously ties it more to the Western roots.
Yeah.
And I believe it was the distributor who convinced him to change the name. So Assault on Precinct 13 was not Carpenter's brainchild.
Interesting. But, I mean, that's a way better title than Anderson Alamo or...
Even the title's cool.
Yeah.
It's really fitting of the movie, even though it's not Precinct 13.
What precinct is it?
9.
I thought it was District 9, Precinct 13.
Other way around, I think.
Oh, okay. It feels like it. They must have come up with that after they shot it.
Yeah, maybe.
And they couldn't afford any reshoots.
It does sound cool, though.
Yeah. I want to get to... Because we've done the intro to the gangs. Mm-hmm. We know the setup there.
You want to get to your favourite scene?
Well, okay. So Austin Stoker's character, you get him leaving his house and getting in his car and driving somewhere, and he gets told that he's got to go to this precinct. And the other setup in the movie is Napoleon Wilson, played by Darwin Joston. The very first scene that you see of him, he's sitting on a chair in a prison and he gets assaulted by the prison warden, gets an elbow in his back, I believe.
Oof.
And he says, the warden says, you just don't sit in your chair too good, do you? And then they do the slow walk out to the bus where he's going to be transported with Starker, the police officer that's escorting these prisoners to their new home, I guess.
Sonora, I keep saying.
Sonora?
Sonora.
What's that?
That's where they're headed.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm guessing it's a different prison?
It must be. And then,
well, they're not going on holiday, are they?
Well, I don't believe so.
They're just off to Butlins. Oh, that'd be worse, actually. Take me to jail.
I would rather go to prison, I think, than Butlins. Yeah, just getting some fucking cheap magic tricks thrown at your eyeballs. Yeah. And so he gets assaulted, and then you get the slow walk out to the bus with the music again.
You don't have to do it every time.
I really like it.
I know you do.
I really like it when they switch up the music a bit, because, like, after the third or fourth time when the music goes, bah, 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 then they switch it up, it goes, bah, bah. I'm like, I like this too.
Do you know what the inspiration for the score was?
Just fucking coolness.
Just distilled cool.
Yeah.
No, it was Lalo Schifrin's score for Dirty Harry. Ooh. And the Immigrant Song, Led Zeppelin, which I can hear. As soon as I read that, I can sort of hear it. The intro.
I don't get that. Oh, is that the one that goes, ah?
Yeah.
No.
The bit prior to that. No,
I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing it.
I can hear it.
We'll have to put that on after and compare. But I love the slow walk out to the bus. You've been introduced to this character. He's already asked Starker for a smoke. And then he asks for a little stretch. You know, I'm going to be in prison for the next 30 years or whatever it is. Can I please have a little stretch? And the idiots, they say yes. And he does this thing with the chain that the warden's hanging onto, and he flips it over him and he trips him over and he says, oh, you don't stand too good. And I'm like, fucking yes.
How can you not root for this guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a really good character intro. And then they get on the bus and the coffee spluttery guy is ill, so they have to stop at this precinct. And we touched on it last night, didn't we? We said, wouldn't it be fun if they made a sequel to this now, where that character was the patient zero of the zombie outbreak, and then so Napoleon they get out of the precinct, but they don't know that they've been infected by the zombie virus, and you just make this sequel.
Yeah, and that was before I'd even read the bit about it being influenced by Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
It would definitely fit.
Yeah.
I'd love that. But also when they get to the station, I love how Napoleon's reputation precedes him. I can't remember the exact line, but a couple of them know who he is, which I find really intriguing and kind of comes back to your point of what did he do?
What did he do? Yeah,
because it must have been something notable enough.
I'm thinking bank robberies.
Yeah, something big.
He obviously has some kind of morals. He doesn't want anyone to die. He looks after people. He seems like a stand-up guy. So you would think it would be something that's more of a circumstantial thing. I do think that they kind of touch on a little bit in this movie as well, particularly with the cop character, where they say, oh, you moved out of Anderson, you got pulled out of before you sort of went bad. I think that's the implication of that piece of dialogue. And he says, no, I took myself out. So I do think there's some interesting nuance in the dialogue there about the nurture and your environment kind of shapes who you are. So I wonder if he's maybe a victim of more sort of circumstance than anything. So I can't imagine he did any. I don't think he's gunning people down in cold blood. No,
he's not a Dharma who's eating people.
Well, until that zombie virus kicks in. Maybe years after that. Did you know what we haven't spoken about yet?
Oh, go on.
Well, the ice cream van.
Oh, like I kind of want to call it the inciting incident, but I'm a bit torn on this.
Explain.
Because, so we're introduced to, is it father and daughter?
I guess.
He looks like kind of an old dad, but I'm pretty sure it's father and daughter.
I hope so.
Oh, don't. That's so, no. They're related, please. And she's whinging about having an ice cream. And he needs to make a phone call. So they stop the car. She goes to an ice cream van and he goes to a phone booth to make a call. And unbeknownst to the child and the ice cream truck driver, the gang are right behind them. And we see a small child shot quite brutally.
Yeah.
At quite close range.
It's really interesting the way that they do that as well, because the gang member is threatening the ice cream. Why is he? What did the ice cream van man do?
I don't know, but those tunes that they play are pretty annoying. So
fucking annoying.
pick one, pick a thing.
Yeah, so he's kind of roughing the ice cream guy up a little bit.
Maybe he'd run out of flakes.
Maybe. Yeah. He's kind of like, he puts the gun in his mouth and he doesn't shoot him, and you think, oh, is he just like trying to intimidate him, trying to threaten him? But just shortly before that, they're aiming the weapon at people and the music's going da 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 da, which is cool, by the way.
You don't say.
And then later on it goes boom boom. But yeah, and I think, oh, are they maybe just like, maybe they're not so bad, maybe they're just trying to intimidate or whatever. But then as soon as the little girl appears, no, they shoot her in the face. And
she didn't even get to eat any of her ice cream.
No, you're right. But it was the ice cream that killed her. If they hadn't stopped for an ice cream, it was her stomach that killed her. She said she was hungry, and they stopped for an ice cream. And ice cream's not going to fill you up anyway. That's problem number one.
Oh, that's the thing you take issue with, not the death of a small child.
And what is a vanilla
twist?
With a twist? What the fuck's that?
Well,
What's the twist?
I'm guessing
a bullet in the face.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but you know when you buy like a 99 and they ask if you want syrup and they put like strawberry syrup on it.
Yeah.
You must have had a normal childhood, right?
Well, I had a childhood.
Yeah. But so my assumption is it's something like that, and then the joke was when she gets shot, like the blood goes on the ice cream. But I may be overthinking that.
Oh, I like that. I think you're right. That's canon. That's canon. Okay. Now. Let's tweet John Carpenter.
He wouldn't respond.
He might.
I doubt it.
I know. I like that. I like that a lot. And I think, was I surprised when I saw that for the first time a couple of years ago? Probably yes. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's not, you don't see that very often.
No, not at all. Even now. But I would say... In fact, I would say less now. People have gotten a bit more precious.
I think I agree with you, yeah. It was shocking then, and I think it would be just as shocking, if not more shocking now.
It was one of the few moments in the film that, or maybe the only moment in the film that the MPAA asked Carpenter to remove.
That sucks, because you can't remove it.
Well, they didn't.
Good.
So basically the distributor kind of convinced Carpenter to tell them he was going to remove it, and that was enough. But they released it uncut.
And they just didn't.
They just lied.
Yeah,
they said they would do it and didn't.
I like this movie doesn't work if you take that scene out, because why is the old man run into the... I guess you could do, maybe he's just being chased by this gang or whatever.
Well, so my question here is, they were doing this ritual thing, the bloodletting, and they were on their way somewhere. Now, were they going to the police station anyway? Because we talked at the beginning, the police killed some of the gang members. That's the first thing we see. So were they on their way there to take revenge anyway? Or were they just following the guy because he shot one of their own in retaliation?
Well, the guy he took the gun. The ice cream van man has a gun.
Yeah.
In his ice cream van.
They were his dying words.
Yeah, as you do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a gun in there. And then he takes the gun, doesn't take the ice cream van.
No.
He gets back in his car and he chases after them. And
I've been guzzling soft serve in the back for like half an hour.
Yeah, I know. You've been sugar crashing for 3 days.
Yeah.
And he gets in his car, and this happens during the day, and then it cuts to nighttime, and you think, oh, he's been chasing these people for a long time. Mm-hmm. So I guess there was just some kind of pursuit. He gets out of his car and shoots one of the gang members, and then he runs to a telephone box, which is in the middle of a park, and then he runs to the precinct. So I find it difficult to reconcile that it was a plan to go to that particular police station. Like you say, the opening scene was the police attacking the gang, so maybe they planned to do some kind of assault. But they seem to just, when they're just driving around and they're aiming at people just kind of randomly, it seems like I don't really know what their plan is. I think maybe it's just to do something random. I don't know if it's to a police station in particular. I feel like it's
indiscriminate shenanigans.
Yeah, I think so.
Which makes sense. But yeah, that was the only thing I was a little bit unclear on, because it sort of felt like from the opening that they wanted revenge anyway, and that's why they were doing the ritual. And I'm overthinking it again. But then following that guy, his name I can't even remember. That's how much of a non-character he is. Would only really make sense if they were if that's what was happening, because he just sits in the station catatonic. That's the end of his role.
Well, they're going after him because he gatted their mate.
Yeah.
So I guess they're doing like a double revenge thing.
Maybe they arrived at they chased him to the police station and were just like, oh, serendipitous, we're on our way here anyway.
Oh, we're in Rome. I don't think they have a real motive, I think it's just, let's just
chaos.
Kill some people. Yeah, chaos. I think it's like a Joker situation maybe. Obviously they're a bit annoyed that they got, their mates got shot in the beginning, but I don't know if they really have a plan. I don't get the idea that they do. I think they just want to go out and cause carnage, like you say.
Yeah. Please can I run a line by you? I don't even remember who utters this line, but I wrote it down in my notes.
Oh, I know what you're going to say. Go on.
Explain what this means. You run this station like chicken night in Turkey.
Now, are we talking about the country Turkey?
I assume so. That's the only thing that would make sense.
You run this police station like chicken night in Turkey. What does it mean?
The context clues kind of tell me that it's a stand-in for a phrase like you couldn't organise a shag in a brothel.
Yeah, piss up in a brewery.
Yeah.
Correct. I just wonder what Turkey's got to do with it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Chicken night. Because chicken night in Turkey, like you're saying the country turkey, but also when you say the country turkey, you think of the bird.
But yeah, is Turkey known for its turkeys? It's confusing. It's a confusing phrase, and I would like to know the etymology of it.
And they're saying that you run this place like chicken night in Turkey, so they're saying chicken night in Turkey is a bad thing.
But, all right, another thing, what's a chicken night? I have so many questions.
I think it's when we all run around dressed up as Foghorn Leghorn.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I don't know what it means. Like you say, it must be, he's definitely having a go at him. He's definitely having a pop at him saying, you can't do shit, you're terrible at your job.
I mean, it's funny. It made me laugh.
It is funny.
But it's a colloquialism I've never, ever heard before or since.
I think John Carpenter has just made it up.
Yeah.
I think so. There's a few, like I already mentioned the one about put hairs on rocks thing.
Yeah.
There's a few like that. I think dialogue is good in this. Like I mentioned it to you yesterday, like it does kind of walk the line of almost being too much in places. Like,
yeah,
it's very cool. I think the Napoleon character is just the best thing ever. And
he's got such an old-timey face.
Yeah.
Like an old Hollywood face. Do you not think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he must have been born out of time, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of is almost too much. I think in the hands of a different director, maybe this doesn't turn out as well.
Or different actors, I would say. Different delivery.
Yeah, agreed. It's funny, like, I don't know these actors really from anything. I haven't seen them in much else. The guy that plays Wells, I know probably him more than anybody else because he's Apollo Creed's trainer in Rocky.
Right.
And is in almost every movie, if not all of them. But apart from that, like, I don't know anyone from anything else, I don't think.
No.
Character that played Starker was in, I think, Halloween, The Fog, more John Carpenter connections there. But yeah, I think everyone's really good in this.
Yeah.
And I think there's some dialogue that with lesser actors could maybe be a bit too much. I don't think it's always perfect. I do think that there's maybe a scene on the bus where Starker and Napoleon are having a chat, and I thought maybe some of that dialogue is a bit flat. But I wondered if maybe there's some ADR going on or something.
Maybe. But also, like, what I just said about Napoleon sort of being a bit old-timey, I feel like the delivery is as well. Like, it's not necessarily the directing or the dialogue delivery itself. It's just things were a little bit more theatrical back then.
Yeah.
If you watch sort of older movies, people were a bit bigger.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know.
No, you're
I don't know how to describe it.
You're absolutely right. Like, this, as we said at the beginning of the show, that it was originally meant to be a Western, and I think Carpenter was inspired by things like Rio Bravo, and I watched a clip of Rio Bravo on YouTube, and yeah, like you say, some of the acting was quite theatrical and quite large, and almost a bit like, it seemed quite out of place, but I guess was quite commonplace back then.
I don't know if it's because some actors made the transition from theatre to talking pictures, because like obviously in theatre you have to project for the cheap seats.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's something to do with that.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
that's sort of evolved over time.
Maybe. And I guess just acting styles changed, and you get pioneers. Like, apparently Brando was a good actor back in the day.
Before he went insane.
Quite liked him in Island of Dr. Moreau. Liked it when he put that ice bucket on his head.
It was the white paint that he daubed on.
Yeah.
That did it for me. I do enjoy that Austin Stoker does disprove the theory that all cops have to have a moustache.
Because he doesn't have a moustache?
Yeah, he's barefaced.
Well, I know loads of policemen that don't have moustaches.
In real life?
No,
you don't know a single policeman.
I don't know any policemen now. No. I did, but not anymore.
Okay.
Not since they... No, let's not get that right.
Not since they expunged your record. So is it about the halfway point that things really, really kick off? Because I'm always surprised by, like, not a lot truly happens in this film. And that sounds like a derogatory thing to say, and I don't mean it as such. But it's quite small. It's quite low key, despite, dead child. I wouldn't call that low key. But it's not until kind of beyond the halfway mark that things really, really ratchet up a notch. And I'm always surprised by how little of the film there is to go at that point.
Yeah.
Because it just, despite a relatively sort of drawn out build up to the actual siege, it's so speedy. It zips by. And I think that's largely due in part to the things we've already talked about, like the dialogue, the delivery,
Bum, bum.
The music. Yeah.
For me, like you made a good point earlier, maybe as a child, I think I would have really liked it, but I definitely get more of it out of it now, I think, than I would have done back then. And I think a lot of that is to do with the craft, how it looks, how it sounds and stuff. And I think all of that stuff just makes me I'm just enjoying it. I'm just enjoying it for what it is in the first half. And then when it gets to the halfway point and you get the siege, you're like, oh yeah. Yeah, you've got this now as well. This is
what a treat.
He's gonna catch the shotgun in a minute and then fire it off.
That is like, that man is unmatched in the cool stakes. Was he like? I think maybe he was like the Ryan Gosling of his time.
Yeah, I think so. I really like the build up to that scene. I think, like you say, the tension's starting to ratchet up a bit, and something that Carpenter just does fucking brilliantly is tension. I think everything that's come before it, the 45 minutes before that, is helping just pile on this kind of increase in pressure and this tension that comes to fruition at the halfway point of the film. And when he catches that shotgun, it's like I really enjoy that scene, but also I'm just like, because he spent 15 minutes, him and Wells are in the cage in the cells at that point, and Austin Stoker's character is like, should I let them out? Should I not let them out? And
I really enjoy that. I love
really
the good sort of the grey areas of him kind of going back and forth on that.
Because he's obviously a good character. He doesn't want anyone to die, but he also knows, like, look, if I let them out, am I putting my life and everybody else's life in danger?
Or are we stronger together?
Exactly. Like, it's not very straightforward. I really like his character, and I like his character, the decisions that he makes based on the information at the time. Like, things change. So he's like, well, now we've got to do this. now we have to do this thing that you were saying we're going to do, we should do earlier. And I said no, but now actually we have to do it because circumstances have changed. But yeah, I think when you get to that point and he catches that shotgun, that is a really nice point in the movie, because I'm just like, okay, now the odds are evening out a little bit. And then you get that prolonged shootout with people just one after another just climbing up to the windows and him doing the shotgun thing.
One of them was John Carpenter.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Director cameo. Gets shot out of a window. Yeah, I think that's probably the moment at which, do you know what? I can't even remember her name. The female character. Oh, I'm terrible at this. What is my
her character name is Lee, I believe.
Lee,
yeah,
of course.
Laurie Zimmer.
Yeah, Lee. I'm terrible with character names. Yeah, I think that was the point at which I sort of sat up and started to take notice of her a bit more.
Yeah.
Because she had this, like, you've already mentioned it, so I'm going to say it again, but you could be forgiven for thinking that some of her dialogue delivery was a bit flat. But then you get this sense, I mean, she gets shot in the arm and doesn't even flinch. She's so unflappable.
I was going to mention this. Like, when it happens to Nick Cage, you think it's silly.
Yeah.
But in this movie, it's fine.
She's just like, oh, this again.
Yeah.
I love that. And then when she's sort of a part of the, having to defend the station, and she's pitching in, and she, they're all stationed at different entrances.
Yeah.
And she's really holding her own.
Yeah.
That's how you write strong female characters. She did it all in a skirt.
Yeah.
They don't have to be a superhuman Mila Jovovich in Resident Evil type to be like a strong female character. She's just really well written.
Yeah, I agree. Like I when she gets shot in the arm, and then the guys are like just kind of looking like, oh, what's going on here? And they approach her, and then she just sort of smacks him around a bit.
And then kicks him in the nuts.
It's like, yeah, this is fucking great. And then that's when she lets out Napoleon. But like you say, that she's just as capable as everyone else in that, if not more so. And I really like the part when they're like, oh, we're trying to decide who goes outside. And she says, well, I would do, but I can't really do it. I can't really hotwire a car with one arm, can I? I think her character is great.
Yeah. And actually, I hate it when there's like romantic subplots that are introduced for absolutely no reason. It's a really big bugbear of mine, especially like it's not in that genre. We don't need it for it to be a compelling film. But I don't mind this. I quite like the interchanges between her and Napoleon.
I like it.
They had good chemistry.
And the reason that I like it is that I think that it works. I think that... And
it's not laid on too thick.
No, it's like, clearly nothing's ever going to happen with these two. It's just like a mutual attraction that's quite...
And respect.
Quite subtle. Yeah, and respect. He's always asking for a cigarette, and she's the person that gives him a cigarette. I think he really respects her. Mm-hmm. And I think she's obviously attracted to him and kind of respects him by the end of the movie as well. But it's, nothing can ever happen. And I think that's the interesting part. I think if this movie ends with them kissing, I might feel differently.
Yes.
But the fact that they go their separate ways, and they both know that nothing's going to happen, but they can appreciate each other. I think that's where the magic lies for the interactions between those two characters.
Yeah.
I think if you lay it on any thicker than that, it doesn't quite work. But I like the fact that they're just kind of, they're attracted, but nothing can ever happen. And there's tragedy in that. And that's more... it's more interesting. More interesting, yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. So after we have the big shootout, Julie's dead at this point. Poor Julie.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Fat lot of use she was. But yeah, beyond that, they're having to come up with, Operation Save Ass, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy the thing that they come up with, because the details are sort of peppered throughout, aren't they? Like, he sees the tanks of gas, and he's like, why are these here?
Yeah, we're like, Chekhov's gas canister.
Yeah. And then previously, he'd also been like, magnesium grenades, or whatever the hell they... Oh, flares, maybe?
Yeah.
Magnesium flares. And they didn't have a flare gun, that was it. And then, obviously, that comes to fruition at the end, becomes part of the big plan. But, like, yeah, you get just enough. They give you just enough, and no dialogue is wasted. And I really enjoy that. How do you find the climax? How do you find the plan and how that works out?
I love it. It's going to be no surprise to you. There's very little that I dislike about this movie. I think the ending is really like it must be tricky, right? If you're making a movie about a siege, I imagine the ending of it must be quite difficult to write.
Yeah.
How are we gonna, like, we've already done a siege, we've already done a shootout. How are we gonna end this?
Yeah.
Trapped in the basement with some explosives. Like, I think that's as good as you can hope for, really. But I really love the bit before that when he loads the shotgun and he catches the shotgun shell. I think that's the best part of the final act of the movie, I think.
Is it? I thought you were going to say that's the best part of the movie.
It's one of my favourite parts.
It's up there.
That scene could only improved if the music went bong bong. Yeah, no, I like the third act of this movie. I like the final scene. I like that they're relying on Stoker's character to use his marksmanship skills to hit the thing
with one of his final 3 bullets.
Yeah, and it speaks to both characters, to Napoleon and Stoker's character, because Stoker's saying, yeah, look, I can hit this thing. Napoleon's saying, I can't argue with a confident man. So he has faith in people. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like it's quite clever. Like, there's information even there. And yeah, they do the thing with the shield, and it's interesting that what did the sign say?
It was something about support your local police.
Support your local police. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting.
It was a nice touch.
I was imagining John Carpenter standing around drinking some bourbon, thinking, "Oh, I think we'll make this sign support your local police." Yeah. I think it's good. It's pretty low key, but I would say this movie is quite, if this movie is made today, you've got explosions and half an hour of backstory for everybody that doesn't matter or even is not interesting. And then a climax where people are just jumping out of windows and cars are flying through the building, and, just, it goes too far. I think the restraint in this movie is one of the things that makes it work. The fact that they had 100,000 or 200 or whatever it was, it's probably the reason why this is as good as it is. It's kind of a cliche to say filmmakers, when they're kind of worked into a corner, they come up with creative solutions, but I just think it's true. I think
Sam Raimi effect.
Yeah, I just think it's true. I think if you're restricted, then you come up with interesting solutions to problems.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I loved Peter Jackson's earlier work. I'm a big fan of Brain Dead.
Oh, no.
I know you hate it, but I'm a huge fan of it. And just look at, like, the bloated epics he's pumping out now.
People like the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, Lord of the Rings
20
aside,
years ago.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like the Hobbit, the more recent stuff.
Yeah.
CGI City.
Yeah.
They're
not my cup of tea.
No, nor mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people tend to make their more interesting work when they have less to work with.
Yeah, and obviously earlier on in their careers, it tends to be the case as well when they've got more creative.
Well, so to me, it's the same as comedians, with a few exceptions. Like, to my mind, comedians tend to have their best material in their first or second sets, their first or second tours, whatever.
Specials, yeah.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, you've had at least sort of a couple decades up to that point of developing material throughout your life. Yeah. And then the window between each one becomes narrower. Like, you don't have as much time to experience new things and draw from your own experiences,
Yeah.
And I think the same is true for a lot of creatives.
I think that's a really good point. And I think also that as time goes on, as people become more successful, maybe this doesn't apply to Carpenter because he'd never really hit that magic box office number. Yeah. Halloween aside, nothing else really performed in the way that he would have wanted them to. So I think to a lesser degree with Carpenter, but certainly with other filmmakers, maybe they hit success and they get a big budget, and then they've got to hit certain beats and certain things in the movies. And I imagine if you get a bigger budget, that just means that there's more control from the studios.
Yeah, more people you have to answer to, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, more people that have invested in this, that have got a say in how the movie is made. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
But I think that's what's so great about this. It's so pure.
Yeah, pure is a great word for it. It does feel very pure, very just like inject some just coolness into your veins. Yeah. Don't think about it too much. Enjoy it. Let it wash over you. Enjoy the music. Enjoy seeing a child getting shot in the face. And Napoleon Wilson just is maybe the coolest character that's ever been on screen.
He's certainly up there, yeah. Also, Carpenter said that this was the most fun he ever had making a film.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I'm not
Hmm.
sure he's had fun since the early 80s, to be honest.
He
He always
must
looks miserable.
he must have had fun making Escape from LA.
Someone did.
Yeah, I mean, I had fun with that movie. I don't think it's that bad.
Also, this film, as we've already said, didn't do very well in the US, did a bit better in the UK. I'm afraid we have Mel Gibson to thank for its resurgence into cult classic status.
Well, at least he
because
did something good.
I know the one thing. Well, Mad Max. Well, okay.
Lethal Weapon 4.
He's a shitbag.
Agreed.
But apparently he was interviewed in I think it was the early 1990s, and he happened to mention it and how much he loved it. And because of the press off the back of that, it had a bit of a resurgence. And I think that's one of the things that sort of made it have a bit more of a lasting legacy, shall we say. So, he did one good thing, like you say.
And then he became mates with Jim Caviezel.
Oh, God. Started reading QAnon.
Fucking pair those two are.
Yeah.
Fucking Humpty Dumpty and Humpty Cunty.
I mean, Tweedledee and Tweedledum would have been better, but...
True.
You've
got to call one of them a cunt, though, haven't you?
That's true. Well, they're both.
At least. Well, great. Yeah, I agree, both.
So let's just end on saying that the British distributor of this movie was actually called Michael Myers.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is that why the William Shatner guy is called that in the next movie?
No, it's a complete coincidence. Yes, of course it is.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he did it to honour the guy.
That's interesting. Forever immortalised in that character that you've seen 1,000 times since 1977. Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, I'm really glad that we did this movie.
Me too. Do you have anything else to say, or do you want to bring up the remake anymore? Because it's very, very loose in my memory. I think you remember it a bit more than I do.
I have seen it a couple of times. Last time I saw it was not that long ago, and I remember almost nothing from it.
Okay.
I remember thinking it was all right. I think I liked it more the first time I saw it. I think I seem to remember the second time I saw it, which was still before I'd seen the original, and thinking, it's not as good as I remember, but it's all right. It's fine. It was quite safe, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of a bit bland, but it was still a stuck in a place thing, that ticks a lot of boxes for me. I think from my memory, I think it was fine.
See, my only real lasting memory is that they kind of switched the races of the main characters and had a black criminal and a white cop, which, we've never seen that dynamic before.
Yeah.
How progressive.
Yeah.
And then you sort of undid a lot of what was great about the first one.
Yeah, and there was some stuff of the corrupt policeman in that, I think, and we're doing that kind of thing, which is a bit more kind of that's been done a million times at this point. So I don't think it was nowhere near as experimental as this movie. It was played a lot safer. It had Ethan Hawke in it though, so that's something. I seem to remember it was all right. I think Lawrence Fishburne and Ethan Hawke, I think, were pretty good in it.
I mean, Larry's always pretty good, isn't he?
Larry's always great. Gabriel Byrne played a really good scenery chewing villain.
Okay.
But he's always decent though, I think. I don't really remember much else about it. The film that I was thinking about most while we were watching this last night actually is From Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay.
And I wonder if, and probably almost certainly, Robert Rodriguez would have been inspired by Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah.
Because we spoke earlier about you get to the halfway point and you kind of get the siege, and it's almost a different movie in a way.
Yeah, a bit of a shift. I can see that.
And obviously From Dusk Till Dawn, it's no secret what happens in that movie at the halfway point. It's more so than Assault on Precinct 13, but it goes from being a crime road movie to being this vampire stuck in a place survival movie. And I feel like Rodriguez must have been inspired by this, because there's even a bit of dialogue towards the end of the movie. And I noticed last night when Lee says to Napoleon, should we save some bullets for us? And he says, no, use it on the next fuck that tries to get in. And that's almost verbatim what George Clooney says to Juliette Lewis in From Dusk Till Dawn. She says, Seth, shall I save some bullets for us? And he says, no, you use it on the next fuck that tries to bite you. So there must be, there's something there. It didn't click to me until last night, but I've been thinking about From Dusk Till Dawn a lot today in relation to Assault on Precinct 13, and make a really good double bill, I think.
Yeah, I like that. Okay.
But no Cheech Marin in Assault on Precinct 13, sadly.
Or Tom Savini.
Well, Tom Savini's in everything, I thought.
Is he?
Yeah, he came up with the name for this, and he invented the
Police.
Yeah.
What a trailblazer. Yeah, so I mean that's it. That's a wrap on Assault on Precinct 13.
And
we're both very enthusiastic.
Yeah, and that's probably it for John Carpenter for a while, isn't it?
I imagine so, yeah.
There are loads more of his that I want to get to at some point.
Yeah, we will.
Christine's on the list. Prince of Darkness is on the list. I know a movie that you really like of his that will be on the list at some point, but not for a while.
No.
Probably not this year.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, we've taken 2 bites of the JC tree. Let's have a little break.
You've taken bites of the tree?
Yeah, I'd just go with it, all right? Okay. But next week we're staying in our trap season for episode 5 of this one. What have you got in store for us next week, Sarah?
If memory serves, I believe I scheduled in Possessor,
which is a Cronenberg.
It's a mini Cronenberg.
The first Cronenberg movie we're covering is not a David.
Yeah.
It's a Brandon.
It is.
That's interesting, isn't it? We're doing that before we do Scanners.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I like Brandon Cronenberg. I like his movies.
Well, we'll talk about it next week, I guess.
The body horror does not fall far from the Cronenberg.